Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Stephen Conway, and Jeremy is back this week. Man, buddy, am I happy to see you after a couple of weeks off. Jeremy Finestone, contributors to the Fight Game Media Network. Band's back together. I'm thrilled. Thank goodness you're back.
Hello. I feel like I haven't been gone very long at all, but I really have been. First off, I want to thank Scott Edwards for filling in on the first week. And second off, I don't even know why I'm here this week after the job that you pulled last week, pulling solo duty. I was like, why am I even here?
You're being
got this under control. I had a little bit of color and seasoning to the flavor, but man, he's the main course right there. Great job. I had some stuff I had to deal with. Might take me away from another show or two, but I should be back, and I appreciate everyone with their patience while I was away.
No, we're very glad to have you. Hello, Colin. Glad to see that you are here live with us. And thank you to everybody who is joining us live. All of you who are listening later as a podcast, we're very grateful you're here and grateful to have Jeremy back with us. So again, thank you. And Venkin's here. Good. I'm happy to see everybody. It was a challenge to do the show by yourself. There's a lot going on here that I tried to do, and I might have tried to do too much. I wanted to make all the points. I also wanted to have my little slides around here in the bottom, all the little subject titles. I had a few of the graphics up there, and it's a lot to do. People don't realize necessarily, maybe we've said it before, but when we're doing this show, Jeremy handles that stuff. He handles the graphics that you see, the slides that come up. He handles the little stuff at the bottom of the screen that tells you what our subject is, and then I handle the chats, and that's just kind of how we have divided up things. And doing all of them at once there's a lot, and then you're trying to just stay coherent with your points and things. So I'm glad
it's like the dude who's like the one-man band, and he's got the giant drum in front of him. He's got the harmonica on the side. He's got a little like electric keyboard on one hand, and he's got the trumpet playing.
And Scott Edwards does it all the time, and I don't know how he does it. Well, he's impressive anyway.
A few people that just have the gift of gab, man, and they just can keep it moving. And honestly, when push came to shove, clear that you do too.
No, I can do it. I feel better knowing I can do it. Not necessarily that I want to do it every week.
Right.
I really don't.
It is a skill set that is great to have in times that you need to have it and confidence. And I am all about knowing that you can do it rather than, hey, I'm going to do this. But you don't have to, but it's good to know that you can.
We are going to be talking about Resurgence this week, of course. That's coming up. Best of Super Juniors coming up. We're about to review Wrestling Dontaku, 2 nights of that. It was several days ago, but it still feels kind of fresh in my mind, a little bit about All Together. We are coming up on a very busy time for New Japan. A lot of shows coming up here. But before we get into all that, I want to just say a big thanks to my girlfriend who bought me this shirt. And this is the new LIJ shirt. You can see here, I'm trying to hold it up as best I can. But this is the new one that Naito was wearing at Wrestling Dontaku in the back there. And it's little 8-bit characters from the LIJ crew. So you got Yota Tsuji on the bottom here with the teeth. And you got Shingo, and Hiromu, and Naito. And then we've got Titan and Bushi and all that, and little 8-bit, almost video game-like characters. And I saw the shirt as I was watching backstage comments, and I just said casually, well, that's a really cool shirt. I like that one a lot. And I don't usually like wrestling T-shirts. I don't have very many. I just don't. Usually they're a little too loud, a little too silly for me, or gaudy. And but this one I just thought looked cool and fun and colorful. And just yesterday, she tosses a package in my lap and said, "Here's something for the show today." And I opened it up, and it was a T-shirt there. So
adorable.
Well, Venkin's asking, "Where's the House of Torture shirt?" Gee, it must have gotten lost in the Amazon.
I have the House of Torture shirt waiting for me at my mail room because I bought a Scapegoat shirt, and it just arrived today. So I got your answer for you. It's on the way. Maybe I'll wear it next week.
My big goal next time I go to Japan, my big merchandise goal is I want to buy a ring-used mask. And they have them at Tutuokan. And they have Liger, Tiger Mask, a bunch of others that are ring-worn wrestling masks, not just replicas and things. No, but I think it would be worth it. It depends on the match. Like it goes exactly like you think it would. If Liger wore it in the Dome, or if Liger wore it when he won a certain title, I don't have the money for those. But there were some out there that I did.
Imagine like a fine jewelry case with a man in a business suit and these fine gloves, and you're going through the catalog of the Liger matches, and it's like, I want this one to like a fine selection, sir. Would you like me to pull it out?
As far off as you would like to think you are. They are in these locked glass cases.
Yeah.
They're on little mannequin styrofoam heads, right?
Sure.
And they're up there, and then there's a little card next to it that's in both Japanese and English, thankfully, because they know there are people like me out there. And it says when the wrestler wore it, and then often there's a photograph, which for Liger is all of his masks kind of look alike. He doesn't really do customs too much, or didn't when he was wrestling. But there it was, and I guess I have to take the word for it there. But there's no history of Tudo Okan shafting anybody these things, so I trust that store. I wouldn't trust eBay or anything like that, but that's my thing there. So I'm not a big t-shirt guy, but this one I really liked, and she got it. I'm very
there are a couple of 8-bit shirts that New Japan comes out with, and the aesthetic is just like, yeah, that's cool. I think I have a Kenny Omega 8-bit shirt.
Yeah,
I have that one, but a little tiny on me, so I don't wear it out.
Well, that's the
sizing wrong on it. When I got it, I'm like, no, my bad.
Man, that's the last thing. I wonder if Liger's NXT mask is in somewhere in WWE. Venkin mentions. That's a good question. Yeah, probably is. He gave a lot of those away, but
Tyler Breeze back in the day.
Yeah, hell of a match. Too. That was back when Tyler Breeze was the MVP of NXT, man. That guy would just go out there and have great matches on every takeover. And he mostly lost them, but he was just like a steady presence of really good wrestling in the middle of all that.
He'd be kind of Chad Gable adjacent if he had an opportunity on the roster now, like Chad Gable does. Like, I think he has the ability to surprise people and go in the ring, but the gimmick is limiting. The fashion model, much like Gable's Alpha Academy is somewhat limiting. They're letting him run with it now, and I feel like the Creed brother turning it into a new like Team Angle kind of thing is nothing short of an inspired move. So I like that, but it's like those guys can go to Japan, and I guess that's where we're going to bring it back around.
Exactly. I was just about to say the same thing. Is the funny thing about both Tyler Breeze and Chad Gable is when each of them, there was a time when it looked like Chad Gable wasn't going to be taken seriously. Certainly wasn't by Vince, right? And we were wondering, are they going to release him? And part of me was just like, yes, please, so we can go to New Japan, because they would know exactly what to do with a guy like that. And I thought that Tyler Breeze would be good here too. But I guess Tyler's. What did he get into? Did he start a school or something like that? Anyway,
he's a trainer now. Like he parlayed learning into teaching, and I think that's a great move for him. Last thing we'll do on WWE before we get really into the weeds on New Japan. I told you off air before this, like they got that King of the Ring tournament, and Tama Tonga did it, or MFT Tama, or whatever his name is. And I was like, there are a lot of people that could win that, but since his dad was King Haku, I feel like having King Tama might not be too far off for a bloodline angle.
I don't think that's too bad. It might happen. I mean, he wouldn't, the way he is presenting himself, as the badass Tama Tonga who's just, smoldering with anger, or just barely contained anger and fury, doesn't really work for a regal, arrogant king gimmick. But that doesn't mean
if you go working.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying is like he could twist that whole thing of the king persona away from the British royalty motif to something a little bit more in line with
like
the
conqueror.
Samoan warrior king, warrior king type of thing that a lot of guys in wrestling have used over the years with, you got, not exactly like High Chief Peter Maivia, for instance, but the idea that you are a leader of a group of people, that you could do something with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's the close I'm going to get to doing that before I screw up something cultural and offend somebody. So I'm not.
There's an idea of a real king. There's also the idea of like, in fiction, Conan was a king, and he was hardly like, he was a fair king, but he wasn't like a royal king. He went out there and he fought. All he wanted to do was fight. So like, being a king can be many different things, and I feel like that's a good direction for him. But our direction is Dontaku. And then we're going to Resurgence. So why don't you take us away where we go to the past and then veer to the future?
Wrestling Dontaku was in the convention center there with 2-night event right there. Night one was in the convention center in Fukuoka. That's a building they don't use all that much, actually. I was just looking back at some of the past. They use other buildings in Fukuoka normally. only drew 2,400 the first night. Not a great, that's like a pandemic type of crowd in there, but it was a decent show. The first half of it, I would say, were more something like preview matches or postscript matches, in that the big match had already happened, and then they're doing a tag that you can't call it a preview tag because the big match had already happened. So postscript type of tag.
I feel like this show was like, everyone who's in Japan and watching New Japan is like, yeah, night one isn't really where it's at, but I'll go. That's kind of the vibe I got from this audience.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that Naito wasn't doing a whole lot in this one either. So that was the one. We have Oleg Boltin and Shoma Kato. They defeated Murashima and Makabe in the opener, and this was a showcase for Boltin, really. He beat Murashima with the Kamikaze. He did the gut wrenches on Makabe, which looked pretty impressive because Makabe is still a healthy chunk of a human being right there, and a burly dude. And he did those gut wrenches on him like he was a junior heavyweight. Just doesn't seem to matter to this guy. Just incredibly strong.
The bottom of the card belongs to Boltin. That's in my mind. For the last 3 months, and probably for a good chunk of time, people are going to walk in the door and they're going to see Boltin Oleg gut wrench some folks and look impressive, and then they're going to move on to the next thing. And it's all by design.
He's really improving also, by the way. He's starting to show some more fire in the ring. He was very straightforward, very stoic. And he's starting to show a little bit of emotion in the ring. His moveset's starting to expand a little bit. He's doing a few different moves in there, new ones that he hadn't been doing. So he's coming along. As far as I'm concerned, dude's on schedule. And this is a star. And the fans are responding to him as such, even though he still comes out to the Young Lion music and in all black. There's kind of he's in this little weird zone between a main roster guy and a Young Lion, but especially as part of the 6-man tag champs. But doing very well, I think, coming along wonderfully.
I have a question for you about Boltin Oleg.
Okay.
Does he beat somebody that no one really beats in a singles match in the next 3 months?
Well, 3 months. Let's see. That would put us through August.
Yes.
So
through the G1.
If they put him in the G1, he's not going to go on whatever. So I would imagine he'll get some wins then if he goes into the G1. If he does not go into the G1, I don't know when that would happen. Maybe, but I think right now they might be content to have him as like, hey, look, he's part of the 6-man tag champs, standing right next to Tanahashi. I think they might consider that elevation.
Let me be a little more specific. There was a question by Dugston in there about Hikuleo potentially leaving. Mm-hmm. And do you think that Boltin Oleg could or would beat Hikuleo on his way out to really solidify him as the next monster?
He might. It also might be ELP beating him on the way out too, if they decide to go that direction with it. But we'll get to all that.
Could be.
Yeah, but I mean that could be a guy you could use for it.
Like I'm trying to think about how they could make these guys stand out and what's next for them, because the hammer is gonna drop. Like something's going to happen with these guys where everything just goes sideways in an angle, and these guys up and coming, like the paradigm, I hate to use it for this show, but frankly, the paradigm will shift, and I think Boltin Oleg at some point it's going to shift. I don't necessarily think he's the next big baby face. I mean, you and I have talked about that ad nauseum in the past, but them watching and seeing this guy destroy bad guys and seeing them suffer, and then all of a sudden turning around and making him do that to your favorite baby faces is going to make him hated and scary.
We'll see how that turns out. I mean, they could go that direction with it.
Definitely.
After that, we had House of Torture beat Just 5 Guys in a tag. There was another tag with Just 5 Guys over United Empire. And I'm getting this out of the way early this week. So, Jeremy, talk a little bit about the undercard.
I mean, it was a couple days ago, so my notes aren't as significant as him. But a lot of this was basically setting up the best of the Super Juniors. They had both of these 2 tag matches. The Just 5 Guys on the one hand on this match and on the next one. And so this one is essentially just, we got the best of the Super Juniors coming. We're going to talk about how Doki's been impressing everyone, even though he didn't come up too well on Satsumi no Kuni. So that's basically where we're at on here, and I'm going to let Steven with his actual notes.
Like I said last week, I have to choke at least once an episode. Maybe I just got it out of the way early this week. But yeah, a couple of just post-match things there with Callum Newman and the Great Okan against, they lost to Taichi and Uemura. Uemura got the deadbolt on Newman. And that, of course, is coming after, Great Okan and Uemura had the KOPW match and all that stuff. So
that match was actually better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean,
and my expectations were very low.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I don't know if it was great, but it was there. After that, we had El Fantasma, Hikuleo, and Jado, and they beat TMDK with Fujita. Now, this was a revenge finish from Hiroshima.
Mm-hmm.
So in Hiroshima, Nichols won by rolling up Hikuleo and grabbing the tights and pinning him. This time, El Fantasmo did this to Mikey Nichols. A lot of pushing and shoving after. We saw Hikuleo kind of go a little crazy on TMDK and Hiroshima. So all that is leading to Resurgence. They have another match with these two teams against each other there, and could be forwarding on a little bit of a storyline that we'll get to when we talk about Resurgence. We suspect that Hikuleo's time in New Japan could very well be running short. Dunstan asked about that in the chat. And my thought is, if I'm WWE, if I take Tangaloa, I'm going to take Hikuleo. I don't think there's a world where you sit there and just say, let's have Tangaloa, but no thanks on Hikuleo.
Maybe not on the tall giant that can actually move in the ring.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the guy that we're looking for right now.
Yeah. I just don't see that. So I think he's coming in later. And keep in mind, Survivor Series, War Games matches. I mean, it helps to have, you could do something like the original Bloodline against Solo Sikoa's breakaway faction. I'm not trying to fantasy book WWE here. I'm just saying that
we have
there's room for these guys in this kind of a gang war that they seem to be building toward.
We have talked about this, that the Guerrillas of Destiny coming to WWE was a very real possibility for a long time. And, we are all pretty confident on Tama Tonga. Then Tangaloa shows up last week, and we're all just like, oh, okay. And then you're just like, you're looking at Hikuleo, you're just looking at the rest of that brotherhood. Jacob Fatu's coming in. It's like there's a real hunger to flesh out the Bloodline story and create a power struggle. And it seems complex and it seems interesting. And I think Hikuleo is probably going to figure pretty heavily into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we anticipate something happening over there. Again, not that anything's a done deal, but it's just what we suspect. After that, we had the Bullet Club. This was Chase, Kenta, and Ishimori defeating Bishamon and Tiger Mask, and you can bet the Tiger Mask took the loss here. The story of this all the way through was that Bullet Club just had Bishamon's number, and they would beat their partners. They didn't beat, like Yoshihashi and Goto in this one. They beat Tiger Mask, but they won every match on the run up to the title match, and then we'll get to the title match in a little bit. The one there where was in there to lose. After that, a LIJ group match against the War Dogs. These have all been really good. Bushi won this one with a leg lock on Geto. Geto is in there to protect everybody, and of course get over that leg lock that I think we're going to be seeing Bushi use in the Best of the Super Juniors. But this was mostly a preview for Gabe Kidd and Shingo. They fought all over the building and just could not stay away from each other. That was the story. They just wanted to kick the crap out of each other. And it was good, and it would lead to the best match of the weekend as far from my sense of perspective there. That was, but this was a nice little teaser for that.
I am getting more and more interested in the Best of the Super Juniors with each of these matches. They have done an excellent job to quietly, if you've been paying attention to New Japan, to get you hyped for the main players in the Best of the Super Juniors. And I applaud them for that, because, there's a very easy way to just check out if you're watching these big shows. You're like, what's next? They're guiding you along the way. So kudos to them for that.
Another example of it came in the next match, and this was Evil, Ren Narita, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. And they wrestled El Fantasma, El Desperado, John Moxley, and Shota Umino. This had a surprise finish to me, but it was part of this whole thing where we are seeing almost each of the guys in Super Juniors that are in Japan right now, or in New Japan right now. A couple of the guys are working for other promotions, and Blake Christian isn't there yet, so they can't do it quite with everybody. but almost everybody that's in New Japan and touring are getting wins in these matches. Like you mentioned, we're just seeing them do it a little differently than they have in the past. Except poor Hiromu, although Hiromu's gotten some wins, but they're telling the story that the overwhelming favorite is on a generational cold streak. This one, Kanemaru won. He spit whiskey in Desperado's face, then gave him a shot to an exposed turnbuckle because, house torture, and a victory roll. So in a match that featured Evil, Ren Narita, El Phantasmo, Moxley, and Umino, Yoshinobu Kanemaru got the pinfall in it. So you could have won a lot of money from me anyway, betting on Uncle Nobu on that one. But again, he's going into Super Junior, so want to make him look good.
Yeah.
And of course, there was the post-match beatdown of Moxley. House of Torture descended upon him and started beating him down.
Now House of Torture ganged up on somebody?
I was as shocked as you are. And then Umino ran them off wielding a chair. So that was just another little bit going into the title match on night 2.
This match was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. And this was Jeff Cobb facing Zack Sabre Jr. for the television title. And I talked last week about how I thought Zach, hopefully, from my perspective, had moved on from this belt, basically. That he did everything he could do with it and established it, did wonderful work, exactly what you hope. And then we were hoping he was on to bigger and better things. I am also hoping he is on to bigger and better things because Jeff Cobb beat him for the TV title here. I think Jeff Cobb is a fantastic choice for this belt. He tells a very different story than Zach. Like, how do you overcome this guy in 15 minutes? That's a real challenge.
Brute force.
Well, that's just it. You always had the idea that somebody could get a flash pin on Zach because of the way Zach works and the way he wrestles and the way he does those pin scrambles and things. So it's plausible. Tanahashi basically did it, right? And even Danielson at times and stuff like that. But this one, Danielson used the knee, but you know what I'm talking about, where it's there's a little bit of jeopardy with Zach that he could actually get rolled up and beaten. And you don't have that with Cobb. Now you got to beat this monster of a human being. So I think it's fascinating. But the early part of this match was what you would expect, which is Cobb throwing Sabre around like he was a hacky sack or, one of those cornhole bags.
Ragdoll.
Yeah. Zach made a comeback. He was selling his ribs, which added to things a little bit later. A lot of cat and mouse, the guys going in and out of holds. It was really fun to watch. 12-minute mark, Zach had an arm bar. Cobb powered him up out of it and chucked him in the air, basically grabbed him in for a tour of the islands to win. The sound of the crowd when he pulled him up into that tour of the islands position, and everyone in the stands there was just sitting there watching. Oh crap, he's in the spot. Like they realized where Zach was and what was about to happen to him. Pretty cool. Cobb's first New Japan singles title in 5 years. And
he won the Never title in 2019 or whatever?
Right. And just before the pandemic. Yeah. And like I said, I just think he adds a different dimension to it, but still a very highly skilled guy. Wonderful TV champion. And hopefully Zach is on to bigger things.
Maybe like the global title?
Well, maybe like the global title. And I wouldn't mind at some point seeing him get a run toward the world title. And
I think both of those are on the table. And I think he is a career man with New Japan. And I think that's the right place for him. Do you think that Matt Riddle did not want to lose to Jeff Cobb, and that's why Zack Sabre took the belt back?
Yeah. Or New Japan just realized that, wait, we've been saying these guys are buddies and partners. It doesn't quite work, so we'll do Zach to Cobb. But I think basically what happened is New Japan realized we've made a terrible mistake with this clown who's bragging about doing cocaine while sitting with our belt. So let's get this doofus out of here. And the best way to do it might not be to.
It was not quite the match made in heaven that the people involved in the deal thought it would be.
I don't know who thought it was in heaven, but anyway, I understand what you mean. And then Venkin asked, did anybody win within 5 minutes? Right. There was a side bet to this. And that was if did you hear about this, Jeremy?
I heard about it, but I don't know the specifics. I think about a year-long ramen or something.
It didn't come into play, but yes, Zach was going to get ramen for every day for a year if Cobb won, and if Cobb beat him, and then if Zach beat, what was it? If Zach beat Cobb anyway, one of them was going to have to do the other. Okay, Zach was going to have to do Cobb's laundry all through G1, and then Cobb was going to have to buy ramen for Zach for every day for a year was the bet there. So
this is the fucking king of pro wrestling.
No, it's not. And it didn't come into play. It was all they had to beat the other within 5 minutes.
No, I know. It's just like these are all King of Pro Wrestling stipulations. What's happening here?
Well, we already have another title shot for Cobb, or title match for Cobb. He's going to be facing.
Oh
Lance
man,
Archer.
I'm super. If this is the new shift in how the title gets defended, I am here for it.
There you go. So, I mean, I think it'll turn out good. Yeah. And then we had another really good match. So, the singles match between David Finlay, and Yota Tsuji here. And this was all about Finlay getting a revenge, in a way, for the New Japan Cup. What he was saying is just, you won the New Japan Cup, but I would have won it if I didn't get sick and the doctors didn't pull me out of it. So he wanted to get a piece of Tsuji. And Finlay was terrific in this match with momentum swings. He's really strong, Finlay. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the next match. But this was hard hitting. It was done with intensity. And Finlay stated his intentions for the global title after winning. I had sort of supposed that he would go after the world title if he got this win. Instead, he goes back after the title he created. Which I'm fine with. That's perfectly okay. Overkill win after using the shillelagh, so they protected Tsuji a little bit on that. It was over 22 minutes, but it was a back-and-forth duel. Excellent stuff. Finlay continues to excel in the ring in this role, and I thought we had a good match.
I feel like I want to give Finlay a nickname of something like the 4-star general, where he is a solid 4-star wrestler. And I know you don't like stars, but he is very good, but he has never quite reached greatness. Like, he is not that guy that's fair. Going to have the match of the year candidate. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that he won't or he can't. It's just that that's not what he does. He comes in there and he plays a role where, he's hated, and he plays like he's learned from his father, and he's learned from the generational talents of how to do this to be despised. And he's done it really well. And I may not love every match that he has, but I will defend the way that he has gone about cultivating this role as the leader of Bullet Club. Even though Gabe Kidd is making a run for it, he still presents as the top dog, and I believe it when he says that he is.
Vinkin says, well, if he's the 4-star general, what's Ospreay? He said the greatest 5-star guy ever. You can call him the entire constellation. No, there you go. The entire constellation.
He is a 5-star general.
He keeps breaking the scale, by God. Yeah. All right. But yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah. We moved on to the next match, which was the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. And this is Nick Nemeth and Hiroshi Tanahashi. And
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
We speculated for a while on how long New Japan had Nick Nemeth. We thought maybe it was just one more match. Turns out it wasn't one more match, just one more weekend. So he and Tanahashi had a very good match. Smart work by both. There were the right amount of high spots mixed in with the wrestling that didn't tax Tanahashi too much. And it built well. Nemeth is a really good wrestler, and he works in New Japan fairly well, I thought. He doesn't wrestle necessarily the way he did completely with he didn't just work a WWE style and all that kind of stuff.
I thought he totally did.
No, I thought he has adjusted a little bit to New Japan in this. But either way, Nemeth hit a danger zone to win, which used to be the zigzag. But they didn't go crazy. They kept Tana on the ground for the most part. There were a couple of spots in there, but you have to do a couple. They hugged after the match, and then Finlay attacked both guys afterwards. He beat up Nemeth. He threw Tanahashi out of the ring. Nemeth rallied and fought him off, then got on the microphone and said, "I'll face you for the global title tomorrow night if you want a piece of me." And that's when we knew what was going on with the global title. And that's when we knew exactly how long. And that's when we knew exactly how long Nick Nemeth was going to be in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Okay,
hey, Sam. I'm glad Sam is here from the Power Bombshells. Don't forget, Sunday at 1:00 Eastern. And glad she is joining us. That's
first
cool.
Thing that I saw when I saw Nemeth, was like, God damn, that guy is in great shape. And then the second thing that I saw is, God damn, for a guy that really wanted to prove that he was more than just a WWE system guy, he sure wrestles like a WWE system guy. Fair credit. fair credit, he made extreme effort to sell and hit the timing right for something like the leg whips and the dragon screw leg whips. Like, he did everything he did to make Tanahashi look great, and he was familiar with Tanahashi, but it just felt like he was pacing himself and pacing the match like he was like all he knew was WWE. And like, when I wanted to see Nemeth wrestle more New Japan matches, and I felt like what I saw was Ziggler wrestling a New Japan match in WWE style.
I don't know. I can't agree with you on that. Okay.
That's just me. Like, I watched it, and it's not a bad thing, but when I was just like, I expected more from Nemeth, and this felt like an upper mid card like NXT match.
Oh,
you know, like you know how we were talking about Tyler Breeze and Jushin Liger off camera before we did. It's basically, this is what that reminded me of. It was just like a very good match, but it didn't get past a certain level, and I felt like Nemeth was limited in it because he was trying to do something.
I mean, he's in with a guy who can barely run, and you know he still got a lot out of it. I thought, by the way, I thought some of the move sequence. I watched a lot of Dolph Ziggler matches, and they were almost paint by number. Like, you knew exactly like the order of the move. Like when Rey Mysterio was really lazy before he started doing the thing with his son that invigorated him. Like, you didn't even have to be in the room to know what was going on in a Rey Mysterio match, and that's the way Dolph Ziggler was. And I feel like this one he was working harder. He wasn't just doing, these are my 5 moves, and I'm going to do the 5 moves in this order. That he was into that pattern. I thought it was different. I thought he did well.
The best way I can put it, okay? Like, I don't disagree with you, but he's been there for 20 years. It's in his programming now. And, like, it's going to take more for him to snap out of the comfort zone, and I'm not sure he totally has yet, because I think he's better than what we've seen outside of WWE. I honestly do. This is what we're getting, and we need to be okay with it. There's a disconnect between what he's able to do, what he knows he can do, and what he's comfortable doing. Well, and I can't, and because the experiment in New Japan seems like it's done, unless, hell, if he comes to the G1, I'd be over the moon, and then he gets to wrestle with a bunch of different people, and about halfway through that, he's just gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna cut loose. And then I feel like we'd see the real Nick Nemeth in New Japan.
Well, I might be in the minority here, because Dunstan just says it was a forgettable run for him. If it's the end of the run, New Japan should start saving cash for younger, new talent. And most specifically, Venkin mentions Gabe Kidd, and let him call shit on the company. More talk about how we ain't in NXT. We are in NXT level up. There you go. And Sam just says, it's like Saraya. She's still stuck in the WWE mindset with her character in her backstage promos. Yeah, Saraya is, and unfortunately, so Sasha, listen to me, Mercedes, because she still has the same writer, and it kind of sounds clunky there, but yeah, and you know that it's okay, all right, maybe I'm wrong on this one. Hey, I saw a little bit more out of him than I did.
If you are a cheerleader for Nick Nemeth and you believe, like, and you're watching, you're like, this guy's the real deal, and he really brought it. I'm like, I'm not going to disagree with you. All I'm saying is that, like, something's holding him back. And I don't know what it is. I just think that it's the programming.
I thought of something else too. Well, just while we've been discussing this.
Yeah.
We have had multiple discussions over the years, Jeremy, that we've been talking about New Japan, about guys who on their first match in Japan don't look quite right, whether it's the jet lag, whether it's getting used to the ring, which feels different, the ropes and that's a thing, especially for the CMLL guys that come over. The ring has different tension in the ropes. It's tricky. A lot of reasons, right? Alex Zane looked a little clunky in his first New Japan match and then flow into it. Perhaps what would have helped Nemeth a lot is just doing a tour. He never did a tour. He did like 4 matches. And so you never really get to slide into that style. You know, he would do a match in New Japan and then be back in TNA or back in wherever else, and you know, back in doing North American style or his, you know, that. So he never really got to be in the flow. He would just kind of come in. I thought he did the best he could. I guess I liked it a little bit better than a lot of you guys did, but I just think there's a lot of talent in that guy. He's in phenomenal shape.
I agree.
He's
like, we're not disagreeing on this.
No, I know. I liked his run a little bit better, but I'd like to see him back.
But I mean, it's like, what did we get? We got Finley back in February, right? We got Ishii last week or like last month, and then we got this match and the next match. And it's like, it's fine, but this is truly, you knew that this is the match that he wanted. And like, he wrestled and he bent over backwards to like have this match with Tanahashi and made sure it looked good. And maybe that was it. He got in his own head about making sure that this match with Tanahashi was absolutely perfect rather than just like go out there and wrestle with Tanahashi. I don't know. I felt like he got a B+, A- when like we're nitpicking on that rather than it being an A or an A+, if that makes any sense.
I would love to see him come back and do a full-on tour, and I think he would probably get a lot better.
If he did the G1, I'd be over the moon, like I said. That would be awesome.
So we move on to night 2. So night 2 drew 4,238. And that was better. It's still down from some years. You know, a big year at Dontaku. I talked a little bit about this last week. A big Dontaku is 6,000. And I guess this did 6,000 for 2 days. And it's not always a 2-day event. So it wasn't bad. But it was, there have been years where they had bigger audiences. And it was noticed by Shota Umino in backstage comments. He did say there that he just said, I didn't like seeing all these empty seats. You know, we got to work hard and try to get these people in to come. So hopefully they will. But we put Naito in a more prominent position, I guess, and it does better. But this one had, well, I don't know. I don't know if this one was Naito. It was just a better one. He had a world title match, right? That's always a big deal.
You also had Moxley, and I think people are actually interested in like Moxley in New Japan as much as, you know, if they're going to complain about it, it's like they're legitimately interested in the IWGP title and what Moxley's going to do with it. And, you know, didn't set the world on fire, but there was interest. I
don't think it can be discounted either. We had Shingo Takagi and Gabe Kidd, and I think everybody knew what that was going to be. So let's talk about the undercard first. We'll get through it real quick. Jet Wei from Puzzle, the Taiwan company that they were working with there when they went over to Taiwan not too long ago. There were some Puzzle guys on that show. Interesting name for a company, Puzzle. And then Naoki Sakurajima, that name's going to haunt me for a long time. I'm glad he's not a regular. I can't say it. Faced Katsuya Murashima and Togi Makabe. Makabe got his King Kong knee drop in for a win. Makabe gets to have a victory. So it was fine. Neither one of those guys really blew me out of the water, but it was the Frontier Zone match. And then TMDK wrestled Shomakato and Tiger Mask, and that was just a pretty simple thing. Shomakato, again, is still under those restrictions for young lions that he's only allowed a certain number of moves. He hasn't moved to that senior young lion status yet. He's still just doing the very basics. So he's starting to get him down, though. I do think Murashima's a little bit ahead of him, though.
When I was putting the graphics together for this show, originally it was Bolton Oleg in this match.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happened?
No, they just moved things around. They never really announced anything. Keep in mind, Sonata is off the whole tour also with an undisclosed health concern. Is the words they are using is an undisclosed health concern, not an injury. So who knows what that is? We're not sure.
Okay.
But anyway, we also had the United Empire, which was Akira and Great Khan. They defeated Doki and Uemura. This was a nice roll-up by Akira on Doki to win, another Best of the Super Juniors preview. And then we had Fujita and Sabre beating the United Empire. And this was a rehab win for Zach over getting a win over Callum Newman. Jeff Cobb was teaming with Newman in that one. So another one of those postscript matches where the big matches already happened.
Really enjoy Callum Newman. Like he's one of those guys, like all four of these guys are like, if they're in a spotlight match, if you're joining us and you're watching this and you see a spotlight match, any four of these guys in it, you should just watch a match. That's basically just general life advice for New Japan.
I don't think Fujita is going to score a lot of points in the Best of the Super Juniors. I would like for him to, but I don't think he's going to. But I think he's going to have some of the best matches of the tournament. And we might end up saying something like that about Newman after G1, because it seems like every time they put him in a singles match, like the Ishii match. I know Ishii's one of the greatest workers out there, but every time Newman gets in there, if he gets into G1, I bet he's going to be one of those guys that's like scored 4 points, but man, his matches, man, they were great. I think it's going to be one of those guys,
like the servicemen, like really just putting out bangers, but not really much to show for it.
Yeah. I mean, Ishii does that sometimes in the G1 where he goes 4 and 5, but his matches are the best ones out there. So
we got Sad Desperado on the next one.
Oh man, don't we ever? This was the the Guerrillas of Destiny. This was Phantasmo and Hikuleo teaming up with Desperado and Shota Umino. And you've never seen Despe so annoyed. And I do mean
there was one time I've seen him exactly in that same mood.
The Master Wado stuff. What was that?
There was the 0 hour of last year's Forbidden Door when he came out with the Best Friends. He had the exact same mood of dejected and defeated. And like, what the hell am I doing here? And he had to do the hug, and this time he had to do the heart, and it was the exact same thing. And every time it happens, I laugh, and then I get a little bit sad.
It's become a motif, a little bit of a trope, if you will, with El Desperado, that he is reluctantly sucked into these things. And but there's a great reward because, of course, all he had to do was tuck Master Wado's towel into his tights on the way to the ring, and everybody popped big. So when he's a little bit like the Simon Cowell of New Japan. If you can break through that negativity and get the praise, it feels all the much better. So. In this one, every babyface hit a big move to take out a member of HOT. So that left Shota Umino in there with Yujiro Takahashi, and there wasn't much doubt as to what was going to happen after that. You got Ignition, Blaze Blade, Death Rider. Look, simple booking here, 101. Shota Umino's getting the winner of the main event. That's already been decided. That's already been announced. He has to look like $1 million in this match, and they made him look like $1 million in this. He had to look strong, so he was getting the winner of the main event. They did exactly what they were supposed to do here.
I enjoy this match. I laugh because every time I see the 4 of Hontai, the Guerrillas of Destiny, and Desperado and Shota, it's like I wonder how long this whole thing is going to last because Hikuleo doesn't feel like he's going to be there much longer. What happens to ELP then? The second half of the year for Shota Umino has got to be designed to make him one of the next big superstars. So, like, where does that leave Desperado after the best of the Super Juniors? And we're going to get into that preview too, but there's a little bit of shine now, and I'm not exactly sure how much shine he's getting in the future.
I think he's going to be fine. The real question to me is what the hell is Phantasmo going to be doing in a short period of time? So that's a big question to me.
Eventually, he's got to get his revenge on Finley, and that could be one of the titles that he has. I don't know if ELP is at that level, but I think that he has potential to be.
What we run into next is one of the matches that shifted. So it was supposed to be Nick Nemeth and Tanahashi teaming on night 2 against Gedo and somebody else, or Gedo and Finlay, I think it was supposed to be. And anyway, they shifted things around. That was all storyline, of course. Right. This is all the plan.
Because he was always supposed to tag with Tanahashi at one point, and then that got scuttled back in February when he hurt his ankle. Yeah. And so they've tried to make do with it, and then, Nemeth isn't sticking around. So
now the storyline here, of course, now that Nemeth is going to be wrestling Finlay in a singles match, Tanahashi is left without a partner. He picks up his never openweight 6-man championship partner, Oleg Boltin, and they wrestle Taichi and Takamichi Noku. So Tanahashi beat Taka with the high fly flow. Tana did not look mobile at all. It looks like he put everything into that Nemeth match, but his knees were killing him in this, and he was not moving well at all. Taichi and Bolton tangled afterwards, and Bolton was a little bit fired up about it. Maybe a little bit of Bolton and Taichi to come, or maybe just 5 guys are going to get steamed off at Bolton enough to say, you know what, we're the next challengers for the never openweight 6-man titles. I wouldn't mind that. Some form of Taichi and Doki, Sanada, Uemura.
I definitely felt that Taichi Tanahashi energy this past weekend.
Yeah. So afterwards, though, a lot of pushing and shoving and talking with Taichi and Bolton. That might be the next step for Bolton, is for him to be pissed at somebody, because he really hasn't had a reason to be. He's just been kind of moving through the ranks. And now if someone can get under his skin, I think that might be the next step in his evolution. It just gives him a chance to look pissed, to to work a match like he wants to beat somebody up instead of I'm just, he does the backstage comment, I'm just trying to win my matches. I'm trying to get better every day. And I think this is the next step. Maybe a veteran, somebody who's, in his mid 40s knows how to work a match, can work with this guy and can add that extra layer of emotion to it. And I think Taichi would be a good one for it.
I think Taichi is underutilized right now. This is a good opportunity for him to be utilized a bit more. I'm getting the distinct sense that they're trying to put him front and center of just 5 guys. And I don't know if that's intentionally because Sonata is injured or because they just want to pivot.
Could be. Some things about ELP we were talking about. Venkin thinks ELP beating Finlay eventually is the way it could go. Yeah, I mean, that would be a good match. I mean, and they still have that history. They've wrestled each other since Finlay kind of kicked him out of Bullet Club and all, took over Bullet Club and things. But that subtext is always there, and you can always exploit that for it. And then Venkin just says, by the way, is there a possible Tanahashi Gabe Kidd match in the future?
Probably.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if Gabe Kidd attacked Damian Priest, for God's sake. The man is everywhere. And of course, I'm being facetious about that. Keep in mind, he has a GHC title match coming because he beat the crap, because he attacked.
Do you want to hear a funny Gabe Kidd story?
If you have a championship belt, for the love of God, watch yourself around the merchandise stand, because if you buy a replica championship belt, Gabe Kidd might attack you in the parking lot for it. This man just goes after anything wearing gold or silver. So watch yourselves out there, kids, for the love of God. But Tanahashi and Kidd, I think eventually that could be a good idea. And if Tanahashi puts him over, I don't know. But, that I would like to see something like that. I think that would be good. And Tanahashi's certainly smart enough to know how to make the guy look good, however the finish would go. So I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I wouldn't mind it either. I have a kind of funny Gabe Kidd adjacent story.
Okay.
I saw a tweet yesterday that said on Friday he is going to be interviewing on Southern California's KCAL 9 TV station for Resurgence.
Oh, dear Lord.
This TV station, when I was 9 years old, right? I was in 5th grade, whatever age that is. I won a Sega Genesis from this TV station that Gabe Kidd is interviewing on through a postcard contest. I sent in a postcard and won a Sega Genesis as a kid. And I'm watching this like, Gabe Kidd going on the TV station I won a Sega Genesis from 40 years, 35 years ago. Living the dream, man. Just don't wreck the place. I want another Sega Genesis one day.
I hope KCAL has a 10-second delay on, for the love of God.
Fine, baby. They probably do. They do all the sports shows. They were the one that they were airing the Clippers when like Jay White and whoever else, ELP, were playing on the bongos.
Right.
The Clippers game a long time ago. Like that was the TV station that it was airing on. So they are New Japan fans over there. Like low-key New Japan fans.
Somebody on the staff watches NJPW World.
1,000%.
8-man tag team match was up next. It was LIJ. This is Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Tetsuya Naito, and Yota Tsuji. So almost everybody on my shirt. Against Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, Geto, and Taiji Ishimori. So this was more about Naito getting his win back after losing to Drilla Maloney in Korakuen Hall. They had the big upset as part of that storyline where Jake Lee attacked him and such. And this whole match built to Maloney and Naito on the apron, the last men left, for hot tags in both directions so that they would get into the ring together. And then they squared off and they were isolated for the finish right there. So, Venkin's saying the Naito pinned Geto. Did I get that wrong? All right. I apologize if I did. But the whole point of this thing was for Naito to get into Maloney. I thought he hit the Destino on Maloney on that. But I have to go back and check. But I thought that was a Destino on Maloney because Maloney was selling the back of his head in the post-match. But anyway, either way, it was a whole thing where Naito kind of got a big win again to rehab him a little bit. So, okay, Venkin's saying nope, that's my assumption. Okay, I thought Naito. I thought the whole thing was Naito got the Destino on Maloney to get him back.
He got in your head.
He did. Yeah, because Ghetto's there. Yeah, usually if Ghetto's in a match, he loses it. That's fair. He does book himself to protect the others.
Even money on Ghetto at all times.
He's right. He's right. Normally it would be, but they wanted to get that win back for Naito, and again, keep him looking strong. It's always good to have Naito looking strong. After that, we had an IWGP Tag Team Title match. This was the what the hell moment in this weekend. Chase Owens and Kenta beat Bishamon again. I'm getting to the point where I'm convinced that this tag team title simply doesn't matter anymore. And I'm not trying to be. No, well, hold on. I'm trying,
with you. Like, yeah,
the crowd was into this. It was not into this. I mean, until they sensed that Bishamon was about to hit the Shoto and win, because the whole match kind of built like they were going to. And so they had Chase up there. They looked like they were about to hit the Shoto, but it didn't happen. And it led to shots with the belt, chair shots, low blows, and all that. And then poof, the Bullet Club won the titles back again. I don't quite understand sending Bishamon to headline shows in Australia for Tamashii without the belts when you don't really need the belts in Japan. I don't want to nitpick this. What I'm saying is that doesn't make any sense to me to send Bishamon over there as headliners coming off a big loss. That's strange to me. It's strange to have Chase and Kenta as the champions again, because why'd you take it off them in the first place? The titles don't need to be on anybody in particular at this point. And then it just gets to the point now does New Japan just consider the IWGP tag team titles as another set of belts that can just kind of bounce around, similar to like the never open weight 6-man? Because really before Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii had it, who really cared who the champions was? It was a match, and
you have 4 teams and maybe 3 teams in 2 months.
Well, and all 4 of them are going to be in a match, apparently, is the way this leads, because what we had after this was El Phantasmo and Hikuleo came out. And then, TMDK came out, and Bishamon was still there. And it's kind of leading toward, it's either going to be a 3-way or a 4-way eventually. It was what they led, because usually when you do the whole Spider-Man meme thing where everybody's pointing at everybody else in the ring, it usually means all of them are going to be involved. You can do it at Dominion. You can do it in a bunch of places. Tornado
tag at Dominion, fatal 4-way tornado tag, whatever.
But again, I ask, why the title change? Like, why, like what story are you trying to tell? Like, if you want to get the belts to TMDK, if you want to do something with ELP and Hikuleo where they try to win the belts and they don't, and they break up, I'm just supposing, you could do all that with either Bishamon or Bullet Club as champions. Who would you rather see as champions in Australia when your champions are going to Australia?
I don't think that made penny difference whatsoever.
Well, that's what I mean. These belts have gotten to the point where it doesn't really matter if somebody has them or not.
I think that's by design, because it's all gone to shit since Aussie Open left.
Vankin says the same thing right here. Dead tag division. The damage Aussie Open did is incredible.
They didn't do the damage. Well, New Japan didn't have a plan. Like they did not lock in this team. And honestly,
Aussie Open didn't do something to New Japan. They did what was correct for them, which is the only thing they should do.
Given that they got signed on an injury, and then Mark Davis has been injured ever since, there might have been a clock on them anyways. And so, we may have ended up in the same position due to different circumstances. There is a very, very shallow tag team division in New Japan right now. And you've had the same team win the World Tag League for 3 years in a row. That's exciting, but it's also boring as hell. And you need to create new tag teams. But when you don't have a budget to bring in a lot of people, you really don't have a budget to bring in more 2-man teams over and over. Like your priority, you put together tag teams with what you got, and then because then it looked like a bunch of tag teams that you just kind of mashed together. And so damned if you do and damned if you don't. I think the tag team division is probably going to be underserved for a considerable period of time, probably well past the G1. And by the time that they get to October and they really decide, hey, we got to, heat up some tag teams for World Tag League and Wrestle Kingdom, and maybe we have something different next year. But I think we are in a cycle right now where they are filling cards. They have what they have for the tag division, and the most exciting thing that they can do is put 4 teams together to Dominion and just make them have a big old fucking match.
Yeah, and Dunstan says they don't care about the Australian shows. Oh, well, I think they probably
do, but they don't. It's easier for Bishamon to lose to a random team and do a shocking win if they don't have the belts in Australia. And for me, that's kind of what I'm like, oh, so maybe that there's a fluke win or something there, or an element of believability that the other team could win if the titles aren't on the line.
Maybe. I don't know. I just don't understand all the bouncing around. If I understand that the division's in bad shape, but I don't understand just the random bouncing around of the belts. I mean, just pick somebody and just put them on. The story seems to be that eventually TMDK is going to win the damn thing, right? It could be sooner, it could be later, but eventually TMDK is finally going to win them. That's where they should. And granted, that's where they should park them. Like those guys should have a long run once they have them. But we'll see. This one baffled me. I was baffled.
It wasn't a very good match either, so spending 5 minutes talking about it is really a choice for both of us.
I know this discussion was probably longer than the match was. All right, moving on to the match that is well worth discussing. And this was the never openweight title match with Shingo Takagi and Gabe Kidd. We knew it was going to be the match of the weekend, and it was. This was a fantastic war. Part of the story, which I find fascinating, is Kidd's penchant for self-destruction. He had the match won after a brainbuster and picked Shingo Takagi up off the mat. He headbutted himself to the point that he was so dazed he couldn't cover Shingo. He picked a fight with El Desperado at ringside for no reason whatsoever, except but it works for his character that he would. The end was a mighty battle. Shingo's timing was absolutely brilliant here. It drove him wild when Shingo called him fake kid in all of those post-match promos coming up, and he really worked hard here to solidify that madman role. I mean, he needs a lot of help, but he worked hard here. It eventually led to the last of the dragon finish. I'm going to pose this question to you, Jeremy. Is Shingo Takagi the best worker in New Japan right now?
Yes. What? No. Yes. Like, why is this a question?
Well, because there's still Tetsuya Naito, there's still some others, and I mean,
okay,
there's still Ishii is still there.
Ishii and Naito, as good as they are not able to perform at the level that Shingo Takagi is able to perform at over and over and over, night in and night out. Like, he is bringing a much more complex level of wrestling than either of those guys are. Ishii is not even wrestling. He's a part-time wrestler. Like, he's not on all the schedules. He's not on all the cards. They bring him out for the big shows and stuff like that. Shingo's there every night. Like, Shingo is the man. He's the best wrestler they have, and he is the only other one that I'd say is Zack Sabre Jr.
Well, that's the other contender, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's at that level. And, my thought on this, and I don't get too wrapped up I try not to get too wrapped up on the Hall of Fame, although I respect the Observer Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. If Ishii got in solely on being a great worker, and he did, right, because he was never the top guy, he was never the world champion, but he was just such a great worker for so long.
Shingo was a world champion.
Shingo needs to be in there someday. And
absolutely.
I'm not complaining that he isn't. I think in the next 3 years, Shingo crosses the line and gets in there. It's just this guy's body of work is ridiculous. Great.
I have, and I will continue to vote for him.
Oh yeah, you have.
Hall of Fame.
One of us has a vote on this show. One of us.
I have, and continue to vote for him. And the man is amazing. And he does not have a wrestler award named after him in the Wrestling Observer, but maybe one day he will.
He might. He might. Let's get some of these comments here. I do want to read some. USVA guy says, by the way, that the Aussie Open had more of an effect than anyone truly understands. Sure. It's starting to become more and more apparent that is true. Dunstan mentioned about the tag team division is if they do the match and don't do an actual unification match, because TMDK has the strong titles, that there's no point to the four-way.
That's not necessarily true. It's only if TMDK doesn't win the match. Like, you could put the title on somebody else, but I imagine, when you do a four-way, I feel like it's a pretty good, it's a solid bet to think that the champion retained.
And then Dunstan says that the Never title match was the real main event, and I shut the show off after this match. So he was really feeling it. Venkin says if you have a bad match with Shingo, you could you might as well retire at that point. Yeah, about right. And Venkin says Naito's old. Well, he is, but so am I. But I understand what you mean. He can bring it out for big matches, but maybe Naito isn't the worker that Shingo is. Funny thing is, Shingo not much younger than Naito. Might not even be younger than Naito. He's like 41.
If not the road, it's the mileage.
You're right.
It's the mileage or whatever.
Right about that. Yeah, Naito. It's more about his I was just about to say his knees, his neck, his everything, his eyes, everything there. Shingo seems to have held up better. And Venkin says Shingo was the best person they have. Emphasis on the have. With there have been people that have come in and out. And then Dunstan mentions one more thing about the tag team division, since we seem to be have it on our minds today. Aussie Open were the gem of the tag division that made the division go up. Yeah, it's becoming more and more apparent how important they were. So, and you're right with the way that this whole situation is with the yen, which we talked about to death, but how much can we really expect to come in? I'll mention this to you, Jeremy, now that you're here. I said there were a couple of tag teams they might be able to bring in that might not cost an arm and a leg. That's going to be the key. And one that I thought was a team that just started up with AEW, which means it's possible, and that's the Grizzled Young Veterans. Yes. I think they'd be fantastic in New Japan.
Sure.
The other one I thought, little outside of the box here on this one, was that Indashir, that the two huge Indian guys,
Veer
and Sangha, and I think they were good. I think Veer's really good, actually.
Do you think they're interested in wrestling?
I don't know. I don't know.
So.
I don't know. That's the question, isn't it? It's always the question when someone gets cut from WWE. How bad do they want it?
At all.
But just supposing.
I wish.
But
what
just
do you think about Motor
supposing.
City Machine Guns?
Well, I love that, but I think they're going to be pretty busy. So I'd love to see the guns. Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty busy because I think they're going to get used pretty big. I saw all these. Well, never mind. We won't get into all that, supposing about that. But I just think that's a team a monster tag team where, the smaller native Japanese guys could try to overcome. That's a story they've done forever in Japan, Japanese wrestling.
I think they would love the opportunity, but yeah, I am very, very. I try to bite my tongue on thinking what AEW is going to provide New Japan when it comes to their major events.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay. I'm not enthused either. I'm not enthused either.
Pivot.
Global title match after this one. Now, this is Finlay and Nemeth. This is the match that was set up the night before. It was a good match. Finlay really is deceptively strong, by the way. I mean, he picks up and throws guys around. And I know that Nemeth isn't exactly a monster guy, but he's probably 220 pounds and things. And Finlay just tosses him. It just doesn't seem like he must squat a hell of a lot. I just don't know. It's funny to see that, but he really does have a lot of power.
He has old man strength. That's what he has.
Maybe that's it. He hit a buckle bomb.
Like when you get older, you're just like, you can just lift shit. And you're just like, I just can.
Buckle bomb, power bomb, overkill. Yeah, it was a decisive win. That was the other thing that was about that. It was a decisive win. He did not pull any.
It was so long, everybody. I'm out of here.
Yeah, so Finlay is back to the title he created. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing Nemeth back, but we'll see how all that turns out. He's got a lot to do back in North America. But Finlay, once again, with the Global Championship, and we'll see where it rolls after this. Whoever is the champion after Resurgence is going to need an opponent for Dominion. Finlay is certainly a contender to that. We also might see somebody at Resurgence stick their head into it. So, that's coming up fairly soon. So I think we're going to get some information this weekend, but I think he's a contender. This is somebody that it could be. Either way, I think Finlay with that global championship, probably a good idea. That I admit I thought that he would go after just straight after the world title after this. But putting him back with the global belt, I'm not going to complain. You need to get the leader of Bullet Club in a good place. You've got to have that.
He always swore he wanted it back. So I thought that was interesting going into the New Japan Cup, that it's like, why is this guy going to win the New Japan Cup if all he cares about is getting the global title from Nick Nemeth? And I will say this, I did get a pretty good laugh over ELP and Charlton constantly calling him a Ziggler through the 2 nights. God, there came a point where I think ELP literally apologized to the audience for messing it up so many times. But I have my thoughts about Finlay when we get to the Resurgence preview. I'll kind of delve into that. But we are deep into this show, and we got to keep moving on.
Venkin mentions, what is Lance Archer's status? Can Tanahashi just call Tony and ask him for a few months with Zayn? Well, I would like to see that team back. They were really good. Maybe so. Who knows what Tony wants? I'm not sure Tony knows what Tony wants. So, by the way, then we had the IWGP World Heavyweight Title match. This is the main event here. Then we've got to move on to our previews. So Moxley and Ren Narita. So Umino came out when Mox was attacked by Sho and Kanemaru. Umino was then handcuffed, hit with a chair, taking him out. Terrible run for Umino there. The whole match, you're just waiting for the ref bump. It's a House of Torture match, just waiting for the ref bump. And then they attacked, of course. Desperado came out of commentary and went after Kanemaru and Sho. Narita came out with a push-up bar, all that stuff, right? And then the lights go out. Togo and Evil are in there, attack with the chair and the Garrett. They were working very hard to make you think that maybe, just maybe, Ren Narita is going to win the world title, but I'm not sure anyone really thought that was happening. Umino was able to get back in, ran them all off. Of course, he's going to be the hero in this, like we predicted out there. He was either going to save Moxley or take a bullet for him or do something heroic. And that's what happened. After all of the shenanigans were done, Moxley rallies with the Death Rider to win it, and then cut a hysterical promo afterwards in the backstage comments about it. And I'm not going to quote it here because it has all kinds of profanity. My mom watches this, but go back and check it out. It's really funny.
It's a language stamp on this show.
It was really funny. And yeah, I mean, the match was fine. It was mostly a John Moxley match. Narita did fairly well in it, but this was academic. The only thing they could really do was do Moxley and Umino.
Yeah. And we're getting that next. This is fine. I feel like this is an opportunity to get those young lions, the Reiwa, an opportunity in an IWGP and a match that they don't have to revisit or worry about giving away with like Naito or any of the top guys that may end up having the title later. So like you have a window to do it now. There are only a few people that there's really a point to Moxley wrestling for the next few months before this run is over. And, I have my theories about when he's dropping this title, and we can get to that at some point today, but it ain't anytime soon.
So we have Uemura stepping up to Shingo Takagi in backstage comments, and that led to a match that we'll be seeing at Resurgence there as well.
Yeah. And then I have the All Together card if you want to just run through that real quick.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that real quick. And so we had, first of all, the three presidents of the companies. There was Sanshiro Takagi, Marufuji, Tanahashi. They lost to the House of Torture in the opener. Bit of a surprise to me. And I have to admit, Jeremy, I didn't manage to see this one.
I didn't either, but I figured if you knew the results, we could just run through them real quick.
Yeah,
for the New Japan adjacent matches.
Just didn't run into enough hours in the day, unfortunately.
Neither did I. Like I said, the personal stuff that I had going on really took up a lot of my time.
Kosei Fujita did lose his match to Keno, which is not terribly surprising. Although we did get some news about Keno and Kato Kiyomiya, and we'll get to that in a second. Natsupoi and Starlight Kid defeated Azumi and Mayu Amasaki in a match that I was excited to see. So maybe they talked about how some of these matches might make their way to New Japan World eventually, maybe after the pay-per-view window's over. And then Daisuke Sakimoto and Ishii defeated Jeff Cobb and Masa Kitamiya. There was enough of a clash between those two that we will be seeing Ishii and Kitamiya, who are made for each other, in a singles match here fairly soon.
That'll be fun.
And then, we had a 10-man tag where Desperado's team defeated Hiromu's team there. That was a whole 10-man tag with people from all the different promotions. That was kind of an all-skate. Kai and Taichi beat Chris Brooks and Zack Sabre. The War Dogs with Jake Lee defeated LIJ, and Jake Lee beat Naito and bloodied him up with the big boot. And so that's going to lead to a singles match between these two at the next All Together show. So that's not going to be in a New Japan ring necessarily. It's going to be at the next United Japan Wrestling, Pro Wrestling.
June
15th is when that one's happening. And then Kato Kiyomiya, Shota Umino, and Yuki Ueno defeated Takeshita, Shun Skywalker, and Uemura in a kind of a next generation showcase type of match. So the other thing I want to mention, Jeremy, Keno and Kiyomiya have now formed a new faction called All Rebellion in Noah, and they're targeting the War Dogs first as part of this New Japan Noah thing continues.
That's
and it's
interesting.
It is interesting because there are two other members of this thing. Neither one of them are Ryohei Oiwa as it stands right now. Oiwa's been teaming with Kiyomiya for a long time. Are we about to get, Ryohei Oiwa back?
We could.
Yeah.
We definitely could. I don't know if you saw this part, but after the match with Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. in that tag, there was a demand that Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. be in the same G1 bracket.
I like that idea. I like that. The Techers need to face off more often. I think that's true. Yeah, that would be very good. So that's there's some news out of that. So look out for Oiwa. I'm just saying that all of a sudden his tag partner is busy doing other things. So could mean that we're getting Ryohei back soon. And as we heard from Justin Nipper when he joined us on our 100th episode, Oiwa's been doing so good there that a lot of people in Noah just want to grab him by the leg and not let him
Why
leave.
don't you stay?
We need him back. We need the new blood. All right. So we have the best of the Super Juniors is up next. And you want to do this one next? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just knock it real quick. Just kind of, I got the whole thing here, and then I got the A block and the B block. We'll just kind of talk through what we think might happen, who the locks are, who might have an opportunity, and who are going to be the pin eaters, kind of thing.
Well, we looked back at the schedule last week and we got a little bit of a hint on who's involved in the last day and all that. So I have my thoughts.
Little game.
I think Block A is going to be a little bit more straightforward than Block B. You know how one of them is always this chaos at the end of the day, and then others, there are the clear favorites.
Yes.
This is just my thought on this. Looking at this list in the A block with Desperado, Kevin Knight, Bushi, Titan, Clark Connors, Hayata, Blake Christian, Fujita, TJP, and Kanemaru. This feels like, because both the two guys come out of each block, semifinals, finals.
Yes, it's much like the G1, where it's like two for each block.
Other people will be involved. Titan will be involved until the end, I think, looking at how things go in the last day. I think we're looking at Desperado and TJP moving on from this block.
So that's kind of where I thought we might be going with it, but it felt a little obvious.
Yeah, but I also think that has to be the way it goes right now. I don't think you make TJP the captain of United Empire and then have him fail here immediately, unless that's the story, that maybe he's not. But then, they could have done that with Faction Warfare or not tease. They could, but I still think TJP is somebody they take very seriously in the New Japan office as a guy. Sure. And so I think he's going to do well here. And I also just don't know who, other than Desperado and TJP, would really move on here other than Titan. Knight,
maybe no. Kevin Knight.
I just don't think they see him.
He is my dark horse. If there is a guy in here where I'm just like, they might just see what he can do and just might give him a little bit extra. I think Kevin Knight is that dark horse guy, where you're saying like, who are your locks and who are your guys that like they could have a run, even though it's pretty much it's hard to say for sure. And I think Kevin Knight is that guy.
You have Desperado moving on though, right?
I have Desperado and TJP. When I look at this, I lean towards Desperado and TJP.
Let's take a look at Block
TJP
B.
leaning as a heel.
Let's take a look at Block B then. With that in mind, this one, Jeremy, I thought was going to be one where most of this block will be in play until the last day. Just looking at the last day's matches. So Hiromu, Doki, Akira, Robbie Eagles, Ishimori, Maloney, Sho, and then you've got Ninja Mac, Kushida. Mm-hmm. So the only people I don't see being a part of this are Kushida. I just don't think they see him in that level. And again, I think he was a
replacement for Taguchi.
And I think he's basically going to be plug and play because I think he can realistically win any matches Taguchi was going to win and lose any matches that Taguchi was going to lose. I don't think Ninja Mac is going to be involved in the playoffs here. So, and I also don't think Maloney's going to be. Mm-hmm. You have to have Sho involved to the last day, but I think it's interesting he's wrestling Akira on the final day. That feels like Akira could get a big win here and keep Sho out of the playoffs. Or, you could have Sho in and Akira gets in also. Is probably going to stumble out of the gate and then make a run. Because the story is that I can't win. He's on this downslide. He might even lose his first match because they like to put somebody behind the 8-ball early in these tournaments. But I still think that Hiromu is, one, he's a draw and a fan favorite. And I think they're going to have him in there in the end. He'll find his way in. My other one, it is Akira. And the reason I say Akira is because I think they could go with TJP and Akira in the semis and put that match in there. I think they could do something like that. That's just my thoughts looking at this.
So one of them would have to win the bracket.
Right. Yes. And that could be, and I think that could be TJP. But when you look at when you look at this, I think that Doki will be involved late. I think Sho will be involved late. And but that's my theory on that. That's just where my head is going into this.
So Hiromu wins the bracket at the very last, right? And it's like winner go home, and he ends up winning the bracket. And then second place is the winner of Akira and Sho. And because Dominion is the finals of Best of Super Junior rather than like a title match, you don't need Sho to be in that match.
Right. That's right.
If you had, like Akira, well, you can't do that one. But if you did Hiromu versus Desperado one more time at Dominion, or Hiromu versus TJP, although I would do Hiromu versus Desperado. But it's a classic, but I don't exactly see Dominion as this show that is going to be like a redefining show for New Japan in general. I think it's going to have a lot of really good matches and booked to be big, but there are other shows on the calendar that I feel make a lot more sense for big stuff to happen.
Let's look at some of the predictions here from the folks watching. Benkin says it seems like Desperado wins to him. And Dunson says Fujita is his dark horse. Benkin also thinks that Akira makes it. I agree with you. I think he might. And Sam has an interesting thought. Sam from Power Bombshells, based solely on the NJPW tweet where you screenshot the winner, Bushi wins.
So who do you got winning this whole thing?
Desperado. I think this is his year. I think the Desperado finally gets his best of the Super Junior victory. He's never had one. I think this is the time.
I think that they have made Hiromu such a loser that I think he's winning it again. And win World Tag Leagues 3 times in a row, I don't think they give a shit. They'll fucking have Hiromu win it again.
Well, but I think I mean that they very well might. He's kind of a safety blanket guy for them. He's one of those guys.
Like I said, it's not going to make or break the card if Hiromu wins or loses like Best of Super Juniors. But I think Desperado's big win is coming at Wrestle Kingdom. I think the whole fluke of losing it immediately after is, I think it's a cheat to have him win it now. Like, I don't think his journey is there yet. So I'm very much against the idea of Desperado winning. There are things to that story that they haven't mined yet.
We'll see how it goes. I think it might be the right time to have him win one.
I wouldn't disagree. I don't think the groundwork has been set for it to mean as much right now.
And Colin thinks Hiromu winning it again would be a little bit boring there. He doesn't like that idea. Well, fair enough. So,
and this is our first night of matches on May 11th, Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah, the big ones, and it starts off in Chiba. So we have Desperado Titan, Hiromu versus Kushida. That has some history to it. Doke and Ishimori, Kevin Knight, TJP. That should be terrific. And Drill Maloney versus Sho, which is intriguing just because of the War Dogs versus Bullet Club aspect of it. So that's intriguing. And then it's back on Monday in Korakuen Hall on the 13th. The 2 big matches there are Hiromu against Doki and Bushi versus Titan. So you have the all LIJ clash right there. And then we're back after that. Those 2 shows are all matches, A and B, 10 singles matches. When we get to Niigata on Wednesday, May 15th, we're back to 1 block at a time with preview tags underneath. And that's Desperado Bushi, TJP versus Connors, Titan and Hayata, Knight versus Fujita, and Blake Christian against Kanemaru. And then in Gunma on Thursday, May 16th, the other block will be in action. Kushida versus Akira, Doki and Maloney. That should be interesting. Ninja Mac versus Sho, and Hiromu versus Dragon Daya, and Eagles versus Ishimori. Of course, Dragon Daya filling in there for. No, is he the one that's filling in for Taguchi or no? Yeah, because Kushida's filling in for Yo. That's how that's going.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Either way.
So there are a number of nights where it's 10 matches, but there are a handful of nights where it's only A block or B block thing. So if you are showing up and there's only a few matches on the card, you didn't miss anything. That was literally by design.
Yeah. And so that's what's going on before our next time here. So next week we'll see where the first 4 nights of action take us, and we'll have an idea of how accurate we were going into that. And then we have Resurgence. And this is a pay-per-view coming up on NJPW World, NJPW Strong in Ontario, California.
I was almost going to go to this, but I'm going to go visit my mother in Palm Springs instead.
How dare you?
Mother's Day weekend, people. Good job, New Japan. Good planning.
Well, I mean, you got to have it sometime.
I thought about bailing and going to the show, and it's like, I should just watch it on TV. Like an hour away. Not too bad.
So we have, Matt Vandegrift versus Adrian Quest. That's the King of the Hill match, basically, where if you win, you stay on the card. And the next, though, Leo Rush versus Mustafa Ali. They kind of snuck this in on us, Jeremy. This is a sleeper wonder match here. This, this should be fabulous.
This match is going to make babies.
Okay. My goodness, you are excited.
This match is going to be like, wow, I'm feeling it now.
Next. Good Lord. Switch the graphic, for the love of God. All right. Next up is a 6-man tag. Tomohiro Ishii, Rocky Romero, and the DKC. That's not going to make any babies. It's not.
The House of Torture.
Against Evil, Jack Perry, and Ren Narita. I don't like the DKC's chances in this one.
I don't like the DKC's chances either. And I'll tell you what, we may be seeing somebody in this match in the main event in Dominion.
Yeah, we might. We might, actually. All right, after that, I like this one. The name of the team they picked for Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler is Dirty Work for Filthy Tom and No Days Off, Fred Rosser. So they're
That's
dirty.
Great. That's better than Filthy all day.
Yes, against Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, of course, West Coast Wrecking Crew. This goes back to the whole breakup of Team Filthy, so there's that backstory there. So Lawler and Rosser against Nelson and Isaacs should be good.
Wouldn't be surprised if we see West Coast Wrecking Crew wearing some Bullet Club shirts when all said and done. Wouldn't be
after that
at all.
Strong tag team titles. This is the one we talked about a little bit. El Phantasmo and Hikuleo versus Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols. So, this is another one where we were talking about are we seeing Hikuleo moving out? So I kind of anticipate a retention here, but there could be an angle coming. So who knows?
I will say I do not rule out any title changes. Hikuleo sticking around, winning a title for 6 weeks and then dropping it.
Yeah.
Anything's on the table with this match. And I'm going to have a good time with it. I am happy with all 4 guys when they get in the ring individually. So let's have a great time with it.
Yeah, and I think all this is leading to that schmoz of a match, whether it's a 3-way or 4-way at Dominion anyway, is my guess. But yeah. So this is more of a strong.
Maybe it's a gauntlet match. maybe the dirty work, and it's just everybody has to pin each other, and they do a 20-minute gauntlet match.
Just make an all skate out of it, yeah. And up next, a lot of title matches on this show, by the way. Strong women's title: Stephanie Vaquer against Alex Windsor. So that'll be the next one. I don't see Vaquer dropping this thing at all here, but Alex can give her a good match.
She is a very interesting person that is getting opportunities in New Japan, and I like what she does. I don't think so, but
Colin is predicting a title change. Colin's predicting a title change, and Venkin doesn't. But either way, I think
I have either one of these women wrestling on AEW. I get why you want Alex Windsor wrestling there, but I think Stephanie Vaquer should be the one that takes spotlight.
Yeah, so does your dog, apparently. Yota Tsuji and Tetsuya Naito against David Finlay and Kenta.
If Finlay pins Naito, the world's going to burn.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
So if Finlay pins Naito, I could see him challenging Moxley and trying to get 2 titles. I also think that it's entirely possible that Evil and Moxley have a match, given how much House of Torture bullshit has happened over the last couple of weeks and last couple of months. But what does that leave? Could it be Naito and Finlay for the global title?
It could be something like that. That's a direction they could go, absolutely, Jeremy. And the reason I lean toward Evil for Dominion over Finlay now, last week I thought that's where they were going with Finlay, headed toward the world title. But instead, now that Finlay seems like he's sticking with the global title, and after Moxley's promo, which was great, again, after Dontaku talking about House of Torture and all this stuff, it just feels like he's not done with House of Torture. I think Evil's probably next for him. Plus, it's another thing where you have a united crowd. No one in that crowd in Osaka is going to want Evil to win, so everyone's behind the babyface world champ. I think that's the dynamic they're going for.
I think now that I'm workshopping it in my head, Dominion is a great place for Finley to reveal a new member of Bullet Club against the match with Naito.
You bet. Zack Sabre Jr. against Hiroshi Tanahashi. Now, this
always
is
a classic.
It's the right guy for Tanahashi. He doesn't have to fly. He doesn't have to run a whole lot. It can be mat wrestling and chain wrestling and grappling, and Zack's brilliant at it. Tanahashi's really good at it. It's probably the best matchup in wrestling currently for Tana.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to have a match every 2 weeks, basically, at this point. You know, he needs to heal up. But Zack Sabre Jr. can do a ground-based match and, you know, give Tanahashi the spots. And, you know, he could do any match with Tanahashi that Tanahashi wants to do.
And Colin's asking who beats Vaquer then. Well, I mean,
it doesn't matter at this point.
Well, I'm saying that I don't think anybody does for a while now. I think they're kind of happy with her. I think they're happy with her as champion.
Like, she is someone that you build the division around if you know that she's going to be there a while.
And you know, keep in mind, you have this working agreement with, you know, AEW and Stardom, and you know, there can be some of those people coming in and out eventually right there. And the one that jumps to mind is somebody who's making a lot of shots in the United States, Mina Shirakawa. So that she could definitely be somebody that they would use in that spot. I'm not predicting Shirakawa wins the title. I'm just saying there are options. Yeah. And right now, I'm not tired of it.
It's way too early for me to be able to read the landscape of how Stardom figures in to the New Japan title and AEW. Like, I think it's walking it on the curve and having her go through a credible list of challengers.
She's in North America, which is what they really wanted to do when they brought the belt back over here. It checks all the boxes. So after that, we have
the match right here that I almost made me go to Resurgence.
TV title match: Jeff Cobb against Lance Archer, the Murder Hawk Monster, taking on Cobb. So you know, just two big old guys slugging it out. Should be entertaining, and a match Cobb can win.
15-minute meat match. Hell yeah. These guys are going to beat the crap out of each other.
Yes, they will.
Big power moves. Basically, in New Japan doing Brock Lesnar matches. Right? Like, they're just going to, like, there's no nuance to this. They're just going to go hard until they gas out, and then they're going to get energy again, and then they're going to go to the finish, and it could be everything that you want it to be, and then you're going to say, like, it was great. They got tired. I knew they would, but man, it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it is a good point. I am curious to see who's next for Vaquer, though, just because there isn't another women's match on the card where someone can come out like Alex Windsor did last time. So maybe something will come up.
They don't even have an event listed. Like, there's nothing like through the next 3 months. We're probably going to have an event after the G1, maybe in like Washington D.C. again, or somewhere there. So
they have time to figure all this out.
They absolutely do. And then meantime, Vicker can go wrestle the title elsewhere, maybe create a challenger at another event, and then bring it back around.
Colin says he wants Lance to be in Japan again so bad. I think we'll see him. I think we'll see him back. I bet he and Zayn are in the tag tournament just because they have to find teams. But and he is really good in Japan. So I agree with you. I'd like to see him back. What's next?
Real quick, I forgot to do one thing, and I'm going to do the plug real quick.
Oh.
We are members of the Fight Game Media Network. You can find a selection of our shows on all audio podcast catchers with shows that include The Wrap, The Dynamite Show, The 5-Star Joshi Show, Popcorn and Pile Drivers, and various newsworthy pay-per-view and PLE recaps for WWE, AEW, and New Japan, as provided by yours truly on Sposs. We also, you can see, have a YouTube channel that succeeds more and more from the feedback you provide. So if you like what we do here live on Speaking of Strong Style every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Power Bombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Dynamite Show following every AEW Dynamite, 5-Star Joshi Show, and live presentations of recaps, subscribe if you're listening for the first time, or just hit that like button that pops up again and tell you sure we're the team for you. We thank you for every minute you spend with us, and we hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy the time with you. Steven, back to you.
All right, next match. Another title match here should be good. Again, we have the never openweight title, Shingo Takagi, Yuya Uemura. So
I feel like this is the one that's going to put you, that people are going to start paying attention to Yuya.
Yeah, I think this will probably be pretty good. He won't win. I mean, I think Shingo retains the title right here, but should be a heck of a match. And, you know, Uemura, we're going to start seeing his personality a little bit as the KOPW stuff comes out. And it's the one thing I think that Uemura is trailing behind. The Reiwa Three Musketeers don't exist. There's 4 of them. But the whole idea of Tsuji, Narita, Shota, what Uemura doesn't do that they do is project a personality. We don't really know who he is. A big banger of a match here with Shingo Takagi can help, and then bringing his personality out with the King of Pro Wrestling is like, what kind of stipulations does he want? What kind of matches does he want? That's the next step for Yuya, and I think this could go a little ways toward that. The first step in the long journey.
The heat storm with the cold personality.
Yeah, the heat storm doesn't really work for him. It needs to be something right there. And Shingo wins. Yeah, Venkin. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think this is
none of the Reiwa should be winning any match before Shota's big match with Moxley, because like there's a psychological aspect to it that you're avoiding because that match is such a big deal.
All right, up next is the Strong title match. This is Eddie Kingston, Gabe Kidd. This is my prediction for a title change. I think Gabe Kidd's finally going to win a belt after challenging for almost every title in the entire industry. And he still has another one coming, a GHC title match coming. But I think Eddie did a wonderful job while he was here. I love Eddie Kingston. You know that. I love his promos. I enjoy his style, his way of selling and firing up, and all. I've been happy with it. But I think it's time to put this on Kidd.
It's time.
Dunson says he hopes Gabe wins the title, and then Shingo challenges Gabe at Dominion. We don't need two open weight titles. Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? But I
don't know here or there or anywhere, but I'm just kind of like, there is an elevation to Gabe Kidd, and the longer you hold back, the more you're just fighting the fans.
And of course, don't forget, Venkin mentions this, the special rules: no ropes, last man standing. So,
Kingston doesn't have to take a pin; he loses this match.
Yeah, there you go. And then Jon Moxley and Shota Umino, Shota's final exam. So, Jeremy, you have some theories about Jon Moxley, his title, what this match means. So let's hear this. The IWGP World Heavyweight title, Shota Umino, the master versus the understudy, all that stuff bubbling up. No feud here. They're still friends, although they were a little frosty after Dontaku. Moxley maybe not as grateful to Shota for helping him as he should have been. What are your thoughts here?
This is 6 years in the making. Mm-hmm. Can you believe that Moxley going to New Japan was 6 years ago? 2018, 2019, we're in 2024 now. He adopted Shota Umino, Shooter, as his young boy. Yeah. Like, the idea of the progression of time, this may, to people not following the journey, may have felt like it came out of nowhere. But if you've been on the ride, you know that this match was like, we want this to happen. I was personally a little disappointed that it wasn't happening at Dominion, because it felt like that was the big place to really feel like Shota actually had a chance to win this title, because I don't think he's going to win the title. I think he's going to graduate, but I think it's going to be because he showed the fighting spirit rather than winning and getting the title. Shota beating Moxley for the title doesn't mean anything. Like, you might think it does, but stop. No, hear me out here. Shota beating Moxley doesn't mean as much as Shota beating the guy that Moxley couldn't.
Okay.
So whoever takes the title from Moxley, if Shota can take the title from them, I feel like that is the true closing of that book. And then you can revisit Moxley and Shota, and he conquers that demon there. But there needs to be, the journey isn't to defeat Moxley for Shota. The journey is to become the best wrestler in New Japan, and learning from Moxley will help him do that, but beating him doesn't prove it.
Well, I think he has to beat Moxley somewhere along the way to being that.
Yes.
Yeah. And now I agree with you here is that he shouldn't win the first time against Mox, because that's a chapter that needs to be told, that he shoots his shot and isn't quite there yet, becomes close, right? Earns the respect of the master. You make an interesting point about how he should beat the guy that beats Moxley. That's interesting to me. And then Moxley can come around as a challenger again. You can do that. That's interesting. I have
always thought that if Finlay beat Moxley, it makes perfect sense that no one but Shota can take the title off of the IWGP, given the link to Ospreay and Shota's match where Finlay interfered afterwards of that one. All the times that Finlay and Moxley have kind of like interacted, there is a link to Shota and Finley at some point, perhaps being the guy to win at Wrestle Kingdom, even if it's the global title. There is something there to that is the true journey for Shota to be the one on top. I don't think it's Moxley now, but I think this puts him on the map for people to believe that he could be the guy.
So Venkin asks, so Evil beats Moxley at Dominion, Shota wins a G1 and then wins a Kingdom? Not sure about that. Here's why I'm thinking that. Keep in mind, there's still a big match, I think, for Moxley at Forbidden Door.
I don't think Forbidden Door is the play.
You don't think so? Okay, so no. Where does the title come off of Moxley?
New Japan Soul.
Okay.
It's the last show before the G1.
Okay.
And Naito has chirped and chirped and chirped about like that show.
Yeah, I think
place. And if Naito got it back from Moxley, I think that's just the safest. Like Moxley elevated a couple of guys that Naito probably couldn't. You keep Naito healthy, and then you go right back to the status quo before the G1.
Yeah, I do agree that Naito probably goes into the G1 as the champion because they need him in the. He either has to win the G1 or go into the G1 as champ. They need him to sell those tickets in the Dome.
Yeah, there is a chance that Moxley has a title match at Forbidden Door, but I don't think Moxley is going to drop the title for Forbidden Door. There is no benefit to New Japan for that title to be dropped at a show that is not a New Japan show when they drop that title in the United States of Chicago. If you drop it again in New York rather than like do the title change back in Japan, I feel like that is a huge misread of your native audience.
Well, you might have just talked me into that. That might be exactly the way that they should go then, to maximize things and to keep it going.
You give the United States their title change, and then you give Naito's title back at New Japan Soul at Budokan Hall on Friday, July 5th. That sounds good to me.
Doesn't sound bad at all. No, I think you make a really good point right there. So with that coming into play, you agree that maybe our prediction anyway, we'll find out on Saturday that we're totally wrong. But Evil is the next challenger for Dominion.
I mean, I talked myself into it during the show, but it really makes a lot of sense that given all the chirping with House of Torture and all that stuff, and the promo they did backstage, and if they win that match, I don't even think they've ever done Moxley versus Evil one-on-one.
Yeah, I don't know if they have. And of course, there's always that history that Evil tends to friggin' win these things. And
he is the top heel over there. So it's like top babyface, top heel. It wouldn't be surprised if it's Evil, is all I'm saying.
All right. So with that in mind, next week, we will be talking about Resurgence, certainly. We will be talking about the first 4 nights of Super Junior action. We've got a lot of wrestling to watch between now and then, and hopefully a lot of it will be pretty good. I think Super Juniors has chance to be really good. Some really good matches out there. And this Resurgence show should at least give us a lot of information for some key things coming up. Keep in mind, Gabe Kidd's going to be challenging for the GHC title. There's going to be another All Together where Naito has to wrestle Jake Lee and settle that score. So a lot of moving parts up here. And next week, we will cover everything that has happened since this one and look ahead to the rest of Super Juniors and any other information we get on those shows.
Real quick, Venkin pointed out that my logic of Moxley, the guy beating, doesn't work if Naito. It could, down the line if Shota ends up like facing Naito and beating him, and Naito never, because I don't think Naito and Shota have ever had a one-on-one match. It's entirely possible that could happen too. But they are two different lines of thought. They could go either way. We're talking through like these probabilities and seeing what the story and the lyrics and the notes between the music sometimes with these shows, and you're just trying to see like what if you think that New Japan is a drift, and then you look and you can see these threads, you realize it's not a drift. You're just not really liking the direction.
Yeah, and there are a couple of things that are certainly with the tag team division that are shaky right now, and there's just some things that it looks like some things are being given attention when others are not, and that can be frustrating to New Japan fans who have seen a more complete product in the past right there. But time will tell. I still think the main story in the tag team division is TMDK, and they're in the process of telling it. I really think that's where it's going, and I think that will pay off and we'll eventually enjoy it. But right now we're eating our vegetables on that one.
Programming note, because family first, we are not doing a live post show or any weekend show for Resurgence or the Best of the Super Juniors. We will be back next week, normal time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on the YouTube channel. Steven, get us out of here.
Okay, we're going to do that soon. And Colin, I agree with you about Speedball, Mike Bailey being involved with Matt Hardy and TNA. Hardy's as a whole, I'm kind of done with them. So let alone getting
Been
them
done with them for a while.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of done with the Hardys. Yeah, I don't really want to see Speedball get drugged down with that either. All right, so we're going to sign off for this week, and want to thank everybody who watched live. I want to thank everybody who listened here later. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give us a review. All those kind of things help.
Thanks for being patient with me while I was gone. I
Absolutely.
will abandon you guys in the future again. I promise you, but it will be smart.
All right. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you once again for spending your time with us on Speaking of Strong Style. We will talk to you again real soon.